They say rejection is the moon goddess's way of protecting you from the wrong mate, that the pain is temporary, that you'll find someone better. But when your fated mate rejects you in front of 200 witnesses on a February morning so cold, your breath turns to ice before it leaves your lips, calling your bond a genetic stain on his bloodline, you start to wonder if the moon goddess simply made a mistake with you. My name is Riven Holloway. I am 40 years old. And this is the story of how being discarded by modern standards made me perfect for an ancient king. The ceremony ground was packed. Every wolf in Iron Peak territory had gathered, their breath misting in the February cold, the scent of pine smoke and anxiety thick in the air. I stood in the center circle, my hands trembling, despite the thick wool cloak wrapped around my shoulders. Not from the cold, from knowing what was coming. Corwin Ashford stood across from me, 42 years old, built like the warrior he was, with dark hair going silver at the temples and eyes the color of river stones. My mate, my husband of 20 years, the man who had grown to hate me more with each passing season. Alphathorn Greymark raised his hand. Silence fell like a blade. We gather under the full moon to witness the severing of a fated bond. His voice carried across the frozen ground. Corwin Ashford has invoked the right of rejection on grounds of genetic insufficiency. Riven Holloway, do you contest this claim? I opened my mouth, closed it. What could I say? That my wolf connection had always been weak? That Corwin was right when he called me defective? That at 40 I had never successfully shafted without screaming? Pain had never felt my wolf as anything more than a distant whisper in the back of my skull. No, Alpha, I do not contest. Corwin's lip curled, not quite a smile, something colder. Then bear witness, he said, his voice cutting through the crowd. I, Corwin Ashford of the warrior bloodline, reject this bond. Riven's wolf withers. At 40 years, she is past breeding age for strong offspring. Her connection is so weak I can barely sense her through our link. This bond is not blessed. It is a burden, a genetic stain I will not pass to future generations. Each word landed like a fist. I had heard them all before, of course. In our bedroom, across our dinner table, whispered in the dark when he thought I was asleep. But hearing them spoken here in front of everyone I had ever known made them real in a way they had never been before. I reject this bond, Corwin continued. I sever this tie. By law of the Iron Peak Pack and the authority of Alphathorn Greymark, I declare Riven Holloway unworthy of the Ashford bloodline. The bond snapped. I had expected pain. What I felt instead was absence. A sudden emptiness where 20 years of connection had been. Not love by the end, but presence. The knowledge that someone else existed on the other end of that invisible thread. Now there was nothing, just a void. I swayed. Someone in the crowd gasped. I forced myself to stand straight. Alphathorn stepped forward. He was 52, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that had never smiled easily. He had been Alpha for 30 years. Under his rule, Iron Peak had grown strong, wealthy, powerful, and absolutely intolerant of weakness. Riven Holloway, he said, by law of stagnant bloodlines, I hereby exile you from Iron Peak territory. You have until moonrise to cross our borders. If you remain past sunset, you will be hunted as a rogue. Voices rose around me. Exile was a death sentence in winter. Everyone knew it. Without a pack bond, without the ability to shift properly, I would die in the mountains. Alone. Frozen. Forgotten. I looked at Corwin one last time, searched his face for any trace of the man I had married at 20. The man who had sworn to protect me, to honor our bond even if it was weak. I found nothing, just cold satisfaction. I understand, Alpha, I said. My voice did not shake. I had that much at least. I will leave immediately. I turned, walked through the crowd. They parted before me like I was diseased. Maybe I was. Maybe weakness was contagious. Maybe they feared that looking at me too long would remind them of their own fragility. I made it to the edge of the ceremony ground before my wolf stirred. Wraith, that was what I called her, because she was barely there. A ghost in my own body. She whimpered, now confused and hurting. I know, I whispered. I know it hurts, but we have to go. I did not look back. I had no supplies, no food, no shelter. The pack laws were clear, and Exile took nothing but the clothes on their back. I had my wool cloak, a cotton dress underneath, and leather boots that were already soaking through in the snow. The temperature was dropping. I could feel it in my bones, 20 degrees, maybe less. The sun was setting behind the western peaks, painting the snow gold and orange, and then purple as the light died. I walked north, away from Iron Peak territory, into the unclaimed mountains where no pack hunted because there was nothing worth hunting, just rock and ice and the ruins of the old kingdoms. By midnight, I could no longer feel my fingers. By 2 in the morning, I could no longer feel my feet. By dawn, I had stopped feeling the cold altogether. That was dangerous. I knew that. Hypothermia made you warm right before it killed you, made you want to lie down, rest, sleep. I kept walking. Memories surfaced as I walked. Not the good ones. Never the good ones. I was 35. Corwin had come home from patrol in a foul mood. Some younger wolf had challenged his authority, had beaten him in a sparring match. Corwin needed to feel powerful again, needed to dominate something. He looked at me, saw weakness, opportunity. "You haven't eaten today," he said. "I had breakfast." "You haven't eaten today," he repeated. "Weak wolves don't need as much food. It's wasted on you. Save it for the warriors." I went 4 days without food that time. When I finally ate, my hands shook so badly I could barely hold the spoon. He called it toughening me up, building discipline, preparing me for the harsh realities of pack life. I called it starvation. But I never said that out loud. I stumbled, fell forward into a snowdrift. The cold shocked me back to the present. I pushed myself up, kept walking. The sun crossed the sky. I did not remember most of it, just the endless white, the burning in my lungs, the way my vision started to narrow at the edges. Wraith was silent. I could not feel her anymore. Maybe she had finally given up. Maybe she was smarter than me. I woke up on the 3rd day and could not remember falling asleep. That was bad. That meant I had been unconscious. Not sleeping, unconscious. There was a difference. The sky was gray. Snow was falling, soft, thick flakes that landed on my face and did not melt. That was very bad. That meant my body temperature had dropped below freezing. I tried to stand. My legs would not obey. I looked down at them. They were blue, purple in places, black at the toes where frostbite had set in. "Get up," I told myself. "Get up, Riven. You don't get to die like this. You don't get to prove them right." My body did not care about pride. I lay back down in the snow. It was soft, almost comfortable, like lying in bed. When had I last felt this relaxed? Wraith stirred. One last time. A whimper so faint I almost missed it. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough for you." The snow kept falling. I closed my eyes, and then I felt it. Warmth, not from my body. That was long gone. This was external, coming from somewhere ahead. A heat source that did not make sense in the frozen wasteland. I opened my eyes. Through the curtain of falling snow, I saw ruins. Massive stone columns rose out of the mountainside like the ribs of some long-dead giant. Walls that had once been buildings now crumbled into artistic decay. And in the center of it all, still somehow standing, was a structure that might have been a palace or a tomb. The warmth was coming from inside. I should have been afraid. These had to be the ruins of Valenfrost, the lost kingdom that every pack told stories about, the place where the ancient Alphaking had ruled before his own council betrayed and entombed him alive, the place no wolf was supposed to enter because the curse that killed the kingdom still lingered in the stones. But I was dying anyway. What was a curse compared to hypothermia? I dragged myself forward. Inch by painful inch, my hands left bloody trails in the snow where the skin had cracked. I did not feel it, could not feel anything anymore, except the pull of that impossible warmth. The entrance loomed before me. The doors had long since rotted away, leaving a gaping archway that led into darkness. I crawled through. The temperature shift was immediate, not hot, just above freezing. But after 3 days in the blizzard, it felt like heaven. The interior was vast. Moonlight streamed through holes in the ceiling, illuminating a throne room that must have been magnificent once. Vines crept up the walls. Snow had drifted into corners, but the bones of grandeur remained. Carved pillars, intricate stonework, a floor made of black marble veined with silver. And at the far end, on a raised dais, sat a throne carved from a single piece of obsidian. On that throne sat a man. I froze. He was perfectly still, eyes closed, hands resting on the carved armrests. He wore armor that looked like it had been forged centuries ago. Black metal etched with silver designs that seemed to move in the shifting moonlight. His hair was long and the color of winter frost. Not white like an elder's, but a pale luminous silver that caught the light. He was beautiful in the way that ancient statues are beautiful. Perfect and cold and utterly lifeless. A corpse. The ancient Alpha King still sitting on his throne where his council had sealed him 900 years ago. I should have run, but I had nowhere to run to. And honestly, dying in a cursed palace with a dead king seemed more dignified than dying alone in the snow. I collapsed at the base of the dais, too exhausted to go any further. "I'm sorry for intruding, Your Majesty," I whispered to the corpse. My voice cracked. "I'll try not to bleed on your floor." I closed my eyes, ready to let the darkness take me, and then I heard it, a breath. Not my breath, his. My eyes snapped open. I looked up at the throne. The corpse's chest rose, fell, rose again. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not possible. You're dead. You've been dead for 900 years. The eyes opened. They were the color of molten gold, bright and burning and very, very alive. They focused on me with an intensity that made my weak wolf cower. "Finally," the voice was rough, like stone grinding against stone, like a voice that had not been used in centuries. "Finally," the ancient Alphaking repeated, "someone weak enough to break the seal." And then he stood. The entire palace shook. I must have passed out from shock because when I opened my eyes again, I was lying on something soft. Not the cold stone floor, something that felt like furs. I sat up too quickly. My head spun. A large hand gently pushed me back down. "Easy, Ribbon Holloway. Your body is still recovering from hypothermia." I turned my head. The ancient Alphaking, very much alive and very much not a corpse, knelt beside what appeared to be a makeshift bed of furs and cushions. Up close, I could see details I had missed before. He was younger than I expected. Maybe early 30s in appearance, though his eyes held centuries. His face was all sharp angles, high cheekbones, strong jaw, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. Scars traced his throat and disappeared beneath his armor, suggesting a violent past. But it was his presence that overwhelmed me. The sheer weight of his dominance made every instinct in my wolf scream to submit, to roll over, to show my belly. Even in her weakened state, Wraith recognized an apex predator. "You're real," I croaked. "I am." He reached for something beside him, a cup of water which he offered to me. "Drink, slowly." I took the cup with trembling hands and sipped. The water was cool and tasted faintly of minerals. It was the most delicious thing I had ever consumed. "How are you alive?" I asked between sips. "The stories say you were entombed, cursed, dead." "The stories are partially correct." He settled back on his heels. "I was entombed. My council feared my power and used a blood seal to trap me in suspended animation. Not quite dead, but not alive either. A prison of the body while the mind remains conscious." His amber gaze darkened. "I have been awake in this throne room for 900 years, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to die, watching the seasons change through the cracks in my ceiling, listening to my kingdom crumble around me. The horror of it hit me like a physical blow. 900 years awake but paralyzed. That was not a curse. That was torture." "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "Don't be." He tilted his head, studying me with that intense gaze. "You freed me. I didn't do anything. I just stumbled in here to die." "Exactly." A hint of something that might have been a smile touched his lips. "The blood seal was designed to be unbreakable. It could only be dissolved by a wolf whose frequency was outside the detection spectrum, so weak that the magical sensors could not register them." He gestured to me. "My council believed such a wolf did not exist. But modern wolf society has become obsessed with strength, with rigid pack bonds, with loud, clear frequencies that announce dominance. They bred out the subtlety, the quiet ones, the wolves whose connection to their beast is so gentle it barely registers." My breath caught. "You mean your defective bond," he said, and the word did not sound like an insult coming from him, "is actually an ancient trait. The original wolves were like you, soft-spoken, harmonious, balanced. It is the modern wolves who are the aberration, though they will never admit it." I stared at him, this impossible creature from a lost age, who had just told me that everything I had been taught about myself was wrong. "But I can barely shift," I protested. "My wolf is so weak I can't even feel her most of time." Corwin said, "Corwin Ashford is a fool who would not recognize true power if it bit him." The ancient alpha's voice dropped to a growl. "Your wolf is not weak, Ribbon Holloway. She is operating on a frequency so pure that modern instruments cannot measure it. You are complete exactly as you are. What they call defect, I call distinction." My vision blurred. I tried to stop the tears. Failed. "What's your name?" I asked. "K.L. Winterborn," he said. "Last king of Valenfrost, first commander of the Moon Guard." and apparently your rescuer. He extended a hand. And you are Riven Holloway, exile from Iron Peak Pack, owner of a defective wolf, and apparently my liberator. I placed my hand in his. His grip was warm and steady. Well then, Riven Holloway, Kale said, his eyes gleaming with something dangerous and promising. It seems we both have debts to repay. I owe you my freedom. And you? He glanced toward the entrance where snow still fell in the gathering darkness. You need a new kingdom. Over the next 3 days, Kale worked a miracle. The palace that had seemed dead and cold slowly came back to life under his touch. He showed me how to activate the ancient heating runes carved into the walls. They had been dormant for centuries but responded immediately to his command. Warmth spread through the stone like blood returning to frozen limbs. He cleared out a suite of rooms that had once belonged to the queen, made them livable with furs and cushions and furniture he salvaged from other parts of the ruins, and he fed me constantly. Your skin and bones, he said, watching me devour a bowl of stew he had somehow procured. Did your pack not feed you? They fed me. I set down the bowl, my appetite suddenly gone. But omegas and low ranks eat last, and lately, I trailed off. Lately, he prompted. Lately, Corwin would take my portion. He said it was wasted on a wolf who could not shift properly. He said I should be grateful he even acknowledged the bounty long enough to reject me publicly. That most males would have just ignored it and let me die of bond sickness. Kale went very still. He starved you, tormented you, and then rejected you in front of witnesses to maximize your humiliation. It was not a question, but I nodded anyway. And your alpha allowed this. Alpha Thorn said it was within Corwin's rights as the dominant partner in a fated bond. I picked at the fur blanket covering my lap. He said if I had been stronger, I could have demanded better treatment. But since I was defective. Kale repeated the word like it was poison on his tongue. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. They have created an entire society built on cruelty and called it natural hierarchy. They have convinced wolves like you that abuse is your fault for not being strong enough to prevent it. He turned back to me, fire burning in his gaze. In my time, an alpha who allowed that treatment of any pack member, let alone a fated mate, would have been challenged and removed. The strong protected the vulnerable. That was the law. That's not how it works anymore, I said softly. No, he agreed. It is not. And that is why your modern packs are weak. True strength is not about dominating those beneath you. It is about building a society where everyone has value. He came back to sit beside me, his expression softening. You have value, Riven, more than you know, and I am going to prove it to you. Kale began teaching me about the old ways. He explained that ancient wolves did not have the rigid pack bonds modern wolves relied on. Instead, they used frequency harmonics, subtle vibrations that allowed communication without the invasive mental links that modern alphas use to control their packs. Your weak connection is not a defect, he explained one evening as we sat by the fire. It is proof you carry the original bloodline. Modern wolves cannot hear you because they have tuned themselves to the wrong frequency. They are all screaming so loud they cannot hear the whispers. But I can barely shift, I protested. My wolf does not come when I call her. Because you are trying to force her. Kale leaned forward, intensity burning in every line of his body. Modern shifting is violent, painful. It is about dominating your beast. But your wolf does not respond to domination. She responds to harmony. He stood, offering me his hand. Let me show you. He led me to the center of the throne room where moonlight streamed through the broken ceiling. The night was clear and the full moon hung fat and silver in the sky. Close your eyes, Kale instructed. Do not try to command your wolf. Do not force the shift. Just breathe and listen. I did as he said, feeling foolish. But as I stood there in the moonlight, breathing slowly, I began to feel something. A vibration, low and gentle, a humming that seemed to come from the ancient stones beneath my feet. That is the frequency of Valenfrost, Kale murmured, the heart of the kingdom still beating after all these centuries. Can you feel it? I nodded, moisture gathering at the corners of my eyes. Now reach for your wolf, not with commands, with an invitation. Ask her to dance. I had never thought of shifting that way, but I tried. I reached for that distant presence inside me, and instead of grabbing her, demanding she come forward, I simply asked. Will you run with me? Wraith answered, not with words, but with a surge of joy so pure it took my breath away. She had been waiting. All this time she had been waiting for me to ask instead of command. The shift began. It was unlike anything I had experienced before. There was no pain, No cracking of bones, no screaming of muscles. It was like slipping into warm water, like coming home. When I opened my eyes, I was on four legs. I looked down at myself. My fur was the color of fresh snow, pure white without a single marking. I was small, smaller than most wolves, maybe 80 pounds compared to the usual 120, but I did not feel weak. I felt right. There you are. Kale's voice was full of wonder. I looked up. He had shifted too. His wolf was magnificent, silver white fur that seemed to glow in the moonlight, easily twice my size with those burning amber eyes. We ran together that night through the ruins of Valenfrost, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. We returned to the palace as dawn broke over the mountains, shifted back to human form in the throne room, both of us breathing hard from the run. I collapsed onto the furs by the fire, exhausted but exhilarated. Kale sat beside me, a rare smile on his face. "You are beautiful when you run," he said. I laughed, actually laughed. When was the last time I had done that? I'm small and slow compared to real wolves. You are fast and graceful compared to the lumbering, dominance-obsessed beasts modern packs produce. He shook his head. They have forgotten that wolves are meant to flow, not fight. You remembered. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Kyle spoke again, and his voice was different, vulnerable. "I need to tell you something, Riven, about why I was sealed." I waited. My counsel did not betray me without reason. He stared into the fire. I gave them cause. I became, lost, obsessed with being the strongest, with conquest and power. His jaw tightened. My mate tried to warn me. I would not listen, so she made a choice. She sealed me, not to destroy me, to save the kingdom from what I was becoming. He looked at me then. "I have had 900 years to understand what I did wrong, and I swear to you, Riven Holloway, I will not make that mistake again." He took my hand. "If you stay here, if you help me rebuild this kingdom, I will not rule through dominance. I will not ignore the voices of the quiet ones. I will not repeat the sins that led to my downfall." His gaze searched mine. "Will you help me? Will you teach me what I forgot, how to build rather than conquer?" I thought about it, about the alternative. I could leave, try to find another pack that would take in a 40-year-old exile with a weak wolf. I would probably die in the attempt. Or I could stay here, in these ruins, with this ancient king who had just admitted his greatest failure to me, who looked at my weakness and saw strength, who asked for help instead of demanding obedience. "I don't know how to teach," I said slowly. "I only know how to survive. Then we will learn together." Kale squeezed my hand. "I offer you partnership, Riven. Not as master and servant, not as alpha and omega, but as equals rebuilding something broken. Will you stay?" I looked into his eyes, saw 900 years of loneliness, of regret, of hope. "I'll stay," I said, "for now. We can see how it goes. For now is enough." He smiled, a real smile this time. It transformed his face, made him look less like an ancient weapon and more like a man. We sat together as the sun rose over Valenfrost, two broken creatures who had somehow found each other in the ruins. I did not know what we were building, did not know if it would work. But for the first time in 20 years, I felt something I thought I had lost forever. Hope. The decision came on a morning when the sun finally broke through the clouds. I woke to find Kyle in the throne room, standing before the obsidian chair he had occupied for 9 centuries. He was not sitting on it, just staring, like it was a ghost that haunted him. "I cannot sit there again," he said with always turning around. "Not as I was, not as the king who chose power over people." I walked to stand beside him. The throne was massive, imposing, beautiful in a cold, hard way. "Then don't," I said simply. "Rebuild this kingdom differently. Make new choices." He looked at me, eyes searching. "I cannot do it alone, Riven. I tried that before. It led to 900 years of darkness." He took a breath. "This kingdom needs balance. A king and a queen ruling in harmony. Not dominance, not submission. Partnership." My pulse jumped. "You're asking me to be your queen. I am asking you to be my partner." He turned to face me fully, to help me build something better than what came before. No promises of forever, no demands of love, just two people choosing to triumph. I thought of Corwin, of 20 years bound to someone who saw me as a burden, of obligations and expectations and the slow suffocation of a bond built on resentment. "I failed at partnership once," I said quietly. "So did I. Kale's voice was soft. Let us fail better this time. He extended his hand, not a demand, an invitation. I took it. 3 months, I said, a trial partnership. We reevaluate then, no obligations. 3 months, he agreed. We shook on it. The heating runes glowed brighter, the air warmed. Like Valenfrost itself approved. She came at dusk, a small figure stumbling through the snow, collapsing at the palace entrance. Kale and I found her there. A girl. No, not a girl. 17 maybe. Right on the edge of adulthood. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered, but it was not from the cold. Please, she gasped. Please, I can't go back. I can't. They'll kill me. Her body convulsed. Bones cracked. Fur rippled across her skin. Then reversed. Human again. The shift had taken maybe 3 seconds. Involuntary. Triggered by panic. Easy, I said, kneeling beside her. You're safe. Breathe with me. In, out, in, out. She tried, failed, shifted again. A brown wolf with white paws, then human, then wolf. Her control was completely gone. I looked at Kael. He nodded, stepped back, letting me handle it. I placed my hand on her shoulder, felt her frequency. It was erratic, spiking and crashing like a heartbeat in crisis. Listen to me, I said, keeping my voice level. You are not your fear. Your wolf is not the enemy. She is trying to protect you. Let her. Stop fighting. The girl's eyes found mine, wide and terrified and so young. I can't control it. I'm broken. They said I'm broken. You are whole in ways they can't measure. I kept my hand steady on her shoulder. You are afraid. There is a difference. Now breathe. Match my rhythm. I breathed slowly, deeply, held her gaze. After a moment, she began to mirror me. In, out, in, out. Her shaking slowed. The involuntary shift stopped. She stayed human, began to cry. I'm Juniper, she whispered. Juniper Wild, from the Riverbend Pack. They exiled me, said my anxiety makes me dangerous, that I'll get someone killed. You won't, I said firmly. Not here. What's your wolf's name? I never named her. Then name her now. She is part of you. Honor that. Juniper closed her eyes, thought. Tempest. 'Cause she feels like a storm I can't control. Tempest, I repeated. That's a good name. Strong. Now come inside. Let's get you warm. We brought her into the palace, fed her, gave her furs and a room in the queen's wing. She cried herself to sleep that night. Kael found me in the throne room later staring at the fire. You were good with her, he said. I know what it feels like, I replied. To be told you are broken. To believe it. You helped her in an hour more than her pack did in 17 years. I shook my head. I just listened. That's all she needed. Someone to listen instead of judge. Kael was quiet for a moment. Then, that is what you will teach me. How to listen. Aldrich Stonebrook arrived on foot carrying a walking stick and a pack that looked older than he was. 67 years old. Gray hair, weathered face, eyes that had seen too much. I heard a rumor, he said when we found him at the gates, that the old kingdom was waking, that it welcomed the discarded. He smiled, but it was sad. I am very discarded. What happened? I asked. I got old. He said it simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The Highlands Pack has a mandatory retirement age, 65. They say old wolves drain resources, take food from the young. I was a historian, keeper of records. I thought knowledge had value regardless of age. He shrugged. I was wrong, or they were. I am no longer sure which. Kael stepped forward. Knowledge has value here, Aldrich Stonebrook, if you wish to stay. I wish to be useful, Aldrich said. That is all any of us wish, I think. To matter. Then you will teach, Kael said. Our young wolf Juniper knows nothing of the old ways. Neither do most of her generation. You will change that. Aldrich's eyes brightened. You would trust me with that. I would be honored if you accepted. The old man bowed his head. Then I accept King Kael. Thank you. Bryn Hartwell came 2 days later. 29. Dark hair, eyes that held a grief so deep it had its own weight. She said nothing when we found her, just stood at the entrance, shaking. I lost my daughter, she finally whispered. 6 months ago, stillborn. The pack said it was my fault. Bad bloodline, weak womb. They avoided me, like death was contagious. Her voice cracked. I needed to be somewhere that didn't remind me. Somewhere I could breathe without everyone staring. I took her hands. They were cold. You can breathe here, Bryn. and your daughter was not your fault. Grief is not weakness, it is love with nowhere to go. She broke then, sobbed into my shoulder. I held her, let her cry. Sometimes that was all you could do, hold someone while they shattered. Later she asked if there was work she could do, something with her hands. I showed her the overgrown gardens, the greenhouse that had once fed the entire kingdom. It needs someone who understands growth, I said. Someone who knows how to nurture life. Bryn touched the frozen earth. I can try. That is all we ask. Ronan Forgeheart was a warrior. You could see it in the way he carried himself. The scars on his arms, the set of his shoulders. You could also see that he was missing his left leg below the knee. He arrived on crutches, refused help, made it to the throne room on his own, and stood before Kael with his chin up. I can still fight, he said. I know I don't look it, but I can strategize, plan, think 10 steps ahead. I was the best tactical mind in the Shadowfen pack before. He gestured to his missing leg. Before this, they called me a liability. Said warriors need 2 legs. I told them wars are won with brains, not legs. They did not listen, Kael said. No, they did not. Kael studied him. I need someone to assess Valenfrost's defenses. The old walls, the weak points. Can you do that? Ronan's eyes lit up. Yes, I can do that. Then you are my strategic advisor. Welcome home, Ronan Forgeheart. The warrior smiled, the first real smile I had seen from him. Thank you, my king. Cassia Emberly was the last, 9 years old, small for her age. She shifted into a russet wolf instead of the standard gray of her pack. They said I was tainted, she told us, in a voice so quiet I had to lean in to hear. Wrong color means wrong bloodline. My mother cried when I first shifted. My father wouldn't look at me. She stared at her feet. I'm not supposed to exist. I knelt down to her level. Cassia, look at me. She did, brown eyes full of hurt. You are exactly as you should be. And that russet coat, it is beautiful, rare, special. Special bad, she whispered. Special, different. And different is not bad. It is just different. Kael crouched beside me. I have read of russet wolves, little one. They have a gift, enhanced tracking abilities. They can follow scents others cannot. You are not tainted, you are talented. Cassia blinked. Really? Really? Would you like to learn how to use your gift? She nodded so hard, her whole body shook. Then you shall. Welcome to Valenfrost, Cassia Emberly. You are home. We prepared for 3 days. Kael taught me the old rituals, the words, the meaning behind each gesture. The bonding ceremony was not about possession, not about claiming. It was about balance. 2 frequencies harmonizing. The night of the full moon we gathered in the throne room. Juniper, Aldrich, Bryn, Ronan, and Cassia stood witness. Our small family. Kael and I faced each other in the center. Moonlight poured through the broken ceiling painting, everything silver. Are you sure, he asked quietly. Once we bond, it will not be easy to undo. I am sure, I said. Are you? He smiled. I am terrified, but yes. We began. I, Kaio Winterborn, last king of Valenfrost, offer you partnership, my strength, my protection, half of everything I am. He paused. Then something shifted in his expression. Vulnerability. I must tell you the full truth, Riven. Before we bond, before you tie yourself to me. I waited. My kingdom did not fall because of betrayal. It fell because of Mitse, because I was so obsessed with being the strongest alpha that I neglected my people. I conquered territories, built armies, fortified every border. I thought I was protecting them. His voice roughened, but while I was looking outward, they were suffering inward. Wolves were struggling, hungry, afraid. They came to me with problems and I dismissed them, called them weak, told them to be stronger. He closed his eyes. My mate Vesper, she tried to tell me, begged me to listen, to slow down, to see what I was doing. I told her she did not understand leadership, that she was too soft to rule. A single tear slid down his cheek. So she made a choice. She gathered the council. They sealed me, not to destroy the kingdom, to save it from me, from the tyrant I was becoming. He opened his eyes, met mine. I have had 900 years to understand what I did wrong, to live with the consequences. And I swear to you, Riven Holloway, I will not make that mistake again. I will listen. I will see. I will value the quiet voices. He took my hands. But you deserve to know who you are bonding with. a king who failed his people, who learned wisdom only through loss. I looked at this ancient, powerful creature. Who could have hidden his shame, could have pretended to be perfect, but instead chose honesty. Then I, Riven Holloway, accept your partnership, your history, your growth, half of everything I am. I squeezed his hands. And I offer you this truth in return. I do not know how to be a queen. I do not know how to lead. I have spent 40 years being told I was worthless. Those voices are loud in my head. I will doubt myself. I will be afraid. I will need you to remind me I have value. My voice cracked. But I will try. I will learn. And I will never let you forget that strength without compassion is just cruelty. Then let us build differently, Kale said. Not the strongest kingdom, but the kindest. The kindest, I agreed. We spoke the old vows, cut our palms, pressed them together. Blood to blood, frequency to frequency. The bond formed. It was not like the bond with Corwin. That had been a chain. This was a bridge. I could feel Kael's emotions, but they did not overwhelm mine. He could sense my thoughts, but they remained my own. We were connected, not consumed. Golden threads of light wove between us, visible, tangible. They spread through the throne room, touching the walls, the floor, the very stones of Valenfrost. The palace responded. The heating runes blazed, the temperature rose. Flowers began to bloom in the cracks between stones. Blue winter roses that should not exist in this season. The kingdom recognizes you, Kale whispered. As it recognized me. You are queen now, Riven. Truly. I felt it. The weight of the crown I was not wearing, the responsibility, the trust, and something else. Power, not dominance, not force, but a deep, ancient magic settling into my bones. My wolf wraith surged forward, stronger than she had ever been. Not loud, still quiet, but present. Whole, complete. Juniper gasped. Your eyes, Riven, your eyes. I looked down at my hands. They were glowing faintly. Blue-white light like moonlight made solid. When I met Kael's gaze, I saw wonder in his face. You are radiant, he said. He kissed me then, soft, reverent, full of promise. And Valenfrost blazed with life around us. The work began in earnest. Juniper learned to control her shifts through breathing techniques I taught her. Within 2 weeks, she could shift at will. No more involuntary changes. She discovered she had a gift for healing. Her sensitive nature made her attuned to others' pain. She became our medic. Aldrich began teaching history lessons, not just to Cassia, but to all of us. He knew stories we had never heard, about the time before packs became obsessed with dominance, when wolves lived in harmony with humans, when diversity was celebrated, not culled. Bryn transformed the greenhouse. She worked the soil with her bare hands, planted seeds, sang to them as they grew. Within a month, we had fresh vegetables, herbs, the beginning of sustainability. Ronan mapped every inch of Valenfrost's defenses, found weak points, designed reinforcements. His missing leg did not slow him down. He moved through the ruins with crutches like they were extensions of his body. Efficient, graceful, and Cassia. Sweet Cassia tracked everything. She could follow a scent trail 3 days old, could identify individual wolves by smell alone. Her russet coat, the thing she had been shamed for, was her greatest gift. We became a family, not by blood, by choice. Every evening we gathered around the fire in the throne room, shared meals, stories, laughter. Aldrich told tales of the old kingdoms. Bryn taught us plant lore. Ronan explained battle strategy like it was poetry. Juniper healed small wounds and large hearts with equal care. And Cassia just smiled more. Kale and I led together. He handled the structural repairs, the politics of the land. I handled the people, listened to their fears, their hopes, their needs. We fit together like pieces of a puzzle we had not known was incomplete. At night, when everyone was asleep, Kale and I would sit in the throne room, talking, learning each other. I am afraid, he admitted one night, that I will slip back into old patterns, that I will stop listening. Then I will remind you, I said. That is what partners do. And I am afraid I will never be enough, I confessed. That one day you will see what Corwin saw. Weakness, defect. Then I will remind you, Kale said, that you are the strongest person I have ever known. You survived 20 years of abuse and still chose kindness. That is not weakness. That is heroism. We were healing, both of us, together. The phantom bond hit me like a knife in the skull. I was in the greenhouse with Bryn when it happened. One moment I was examining tomato plants. The next I was on my knees screaming. Corwin's voice flooded my mind. Hello, Riven. It should not have been possible. He had rejected the bond, severed it, but some threads remained. Phantom connections that were supposed to fade but had not. Please, I gasped. Get out. You have no right. I have every right. You are pack property. Rejected or not, you were born in Iron Peak territory. Alpha Thorn demands your return. Pain lanced through my temples. He was pouring power into the phantom bond, trying to force submission. The pack needs you, Corwin continued. His voice was strange. Off. We made a mistake. Come back. Come home. That was never my home, I gritted out. The pain intensified. I felt blood drip from my nose. Then Kale was there, his hands on my shoulders, his presence like a shield. She said no, Corwin Ashford. His voice was cold, lethal. Release her. Now. This doesn't concern you, Ancient. This is pack business. She is my mate, my queen. That makes it very much my concern. I felt Kael's power surge. Not into me, through me, following the phantom bond back to its source like a hunter tracking prey. Corwin screamed in my head. What are you doing? Stop. That's not... You have been torturing my mate through an illegitimate connection, Kael snarled. Let me show you how that feels. Tenfold. The pain in my head vanished. I gasped, gulped air, but through the bond I felt Corwin's agony. Raw and absolute. Kael was sending back every ounce of cruelty Corwin had poured into me. Amplified. Please, Corwin whimpered. Please, I'll stop. I'll sever it. I promise, just stop. Please. But then something changed. Corwin's voice broke. Not from pain, from desperation. They're forcing me, Riven, Alpha Thorn, the Council. If I don't bring you back, they'll exile my new mate. She's pregnant. She'll die in the winter. Please, I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong, but she's innocent. Please, Kael's power paused. You expect mercy, he said. After what you did to her? No, Corwin said. I expect nothing. I deserve nothing. But she does not deserve to die for my sins. If there is any kindness left in you, Riven, help her. I looked at Kael. He met my eyes, waited for my decision. I thought about it. About this woman I had never met, who loved a man who had brutalized me, who was being used as a pawn in the same game that had destroyed me. Bring her here, I said. Both of you, come to Valenfrost. We will protect her. You will work. You will atone. But she will be safe. Silence. Then you would do that after everything. I would not let her suffer for your mistakes, I said. That is the difference between us, Corwin. I do not punish the innocent for the crimes of the guilty. I cannot abandon my rank. My jaw tightened. Then you have made your choice. Kael's hand moved, sharp, decisive, like cutting thread. The phantom bond shattered. Not slowly, not gently, severed completely. The pieces dissolved into nothing. The absence was immediate, total. For the first time in 20 years, I felt no echo of Corwin in my mind. I sagged against Kael. He held me up. He chose rank over redemption, I said quietly. I pity him. He chose wrong, Kael agreed, as I once did. I hope he learns before it destroys him. The message arrived 3 days later. A wolf we did not recognize appeared at the gates, young, terrified. He carried a scroll sealed with the mark of the Council of Regional Alphas. His hand shook as he handed it to Kael. I am sorry, the young wolf whispered. They forced me to deliver this. I do not agree with what it says, but I had no choice. We understand, I said gently. You are not responsible for their words. Go home. You are safe. He fled. Kael broke the seal, read in silence. His expression darkened with each line. What is it? I asked. He handed me the scroll. I read, by order of the Council of Regional Alphas and the authority of 12 pack territories, formal charges are brought against the entity known as Valenfrost and its rulers, Kael Winterborn and Riven Holloway. Charges 1. Harboring defective wolves in violation of natural pack hierarchy. 2. Bonding with a cursed ancient entity corrupting the natural order. 3. Promoting ideology that undermines the foundation of wolf society. A cultural tribunal will convene at Stone Hollow in 5 days. Failure to appear will be considered an admission of guilt in an act of war. If found guilty, all residents of Valenfrost will be forcibly returned to their original packs. Riven Holloway will be executed for treason against wolf nature. Signed at Alpha Thorn Greymark of Iron Peak and 11 additional pack leaders. My hands trembled. They are calling us to trial. Not a trial, Kale said grimly. A show. They have already decided we are guilty. This is theater to justify destroying what we have built. Then what do we do? He looked at me, fire burning in his gaze. We fight, not with claws, not with teeth. We fight with truth. We show them that the world they built is not the only world possible, that there is another way. I thought of Juniper, Aldrich, Bryn, Ronan, Cassia, our family, the ones who had been thrown away and found value here. We bring them, I said, all of them. Let the council see what they call defective. Let them see what we call family. Kale smiled, fierce and proud. Then we prepare for war, my queen. Not with weapons, with witnesses. We had 5 days. We used every moment. We gathered in the throne room, all of us. They want to put us on trial, I said, to judge whether we have the right to exist, whether you have the right to be valued. Juniper stood. We fight. We cannot fight 12 packs, Aldrich said gently, not physically. Then we fight with our stories, Bryn said. We show them what we have become. I'll demonstrate my tracking, Cassia offered. Small voice but steady. I'll present the defense strategy, Ronan said. Show them disabled does not mean useless. And I will teach them history, Aldrich said. Remind them what they have forgotten. Kale looked at them, this small broken family we had built. You understand the risk. If we lose, you will be forced back to the places that hurt you. Then we do not lose, Juniper said simply. My vision blurred. You are the bravest souls I have ever known. We learned from you, Bryn said. You showed us broken does not mean worthless. Now we show them. Kale placed his hand over mine. His frequency hummed through our bond. Steady, sure. 5 days, he said. We have 5 days to prepare the testimony that will change everything. I looked at our family, at the ruins that had become home, at the kingdom we had built on kindness instead of cruelty. Then let us prepare, I said, and may the moon goddess grant us the words they need to hear. The fire crackled. Outside, snow began to fall, gentle, soft, like the world was holding its breath, waiting to see if broken things could prove they were worth saving, waiting to see if the old world could make room for the new, waiting for the trial that would decide everything. We left Valenfrost at dawn, 7 of us. Kale and I led. Behind us walked Juniper, Aldrich, Bryn Ronan with his crutches, and Cassia holding Bryn's hand. A small procession of the discarded, the rejected, the supposedly worthless. We were walking into the heart of the system that had broken us. The journey to Stone Hollow would take 3 days. 3 days to prepare, to practice, to convince ourselves that words could be weapons strong enough to win a war. Juniper walked beside me, her breath misting in the cold air. I'm scared, she admitted. 17 years old and trying to be brave. Good, I said. Fear means you understand the stakes, but do not let it silence you. They want you silent. That is how they win. What if I freeze? What if I shift involuntarily in front of everyone? I stopped walking, turned to face her. Then you shift, and you shift back, and you show them that your sensitivity is not weakness. It is proof you feel things they have forgotten how to feel. She nodded, still afraid, but steadier. That night we made camp in a clearing, built a fire, sat close for warmth. Aldrich told stories, not the ones he would tell at the tribunal, just old tales, funny ones, about wolves who made foolish mistakes and learned from them, about heroes who were small and slow but clever, about underdogs who won. Cassia fell asleep against Bryn's shoulder. Ronan whittled a piece of wood into the shape of a wolf. Juniper practiced her breathing, in, out, in, out. Kale sat beside me, our shoulders touching. I failed at this once before, he said quietly, leading people into danger. I led them to war, to conquest, to ruin. This is not war, I said. This is truth, and you are not leading alone. No, he looked at our small family. I am not. That is the difference. The second day was harder. The reality of what we were walking toward began to sink in. 12 pack alphas, 300 wolves, all of them believing we were wrong, dangerous, corrupt. Bryn stopped walking around midday, just stood there in the snow, staring at nothing. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't stand in front of them and talk about my daughter, about losing her. They will see weakness. They will see failure. I walked back to her. They will see a mother who survived the unsurvivable, who turned grief into growth, who feeds an entire kingdom with her bare hands. They will see a woman whose body couldn't carry a child to term. Then let them see that. Let them see that your worth is not measured by your womb, that you are valuable because you exist, because you choose kindness, because you nurture life even after death tried to take yours. Bryn's eyes filled with tears. I don't know if I'm that strong. You are standing here, aren't you, still breathing, still training? That is strength. She broke then, cried. I held her while she shattered and reformed. We all did. Juniper on one side, Cassia on the other. Even Ronan, leaning on his crutches, placed a hand on her shoulder. We are family, Aldrich said. Family holds each other when the world tries to break us. We stood there in the snow. 7 broken pieces that had somehow become whole. We saw it at sunset on the 3rd day. Stone Hollow, a massive circular clearing in the forest surrounded by ancient standing stones. Each stone was carved with symbols from the old language, wards against violence. This was neutral ground, sacred ground. No wolf could raise a claw here without the stones themselves intervening. But words could still wound, and we were walking into a place designed for judgment. Wolves were already gathering. I counted them. 50, 100, 200. More arriving every hour. Representatives from 12 packs. Witnesses, judges, executioners if we lost. They stared at us as we entered. At Kyle, tall and ancient and radiating power. At me, small and quiet beside him. At Juniper, so young. At Aldrich, so old. At Bryn's haunted eyes. At Ronan's missing leg. At Cassia's russet coat when she briefly shifted to warm herself. I heard the whispers. That's the defective one. The ancient is real. I thought it was a myth. Look at them. Broken. All of them. They think they can challenge the council. This will be over by nightfall. Kale's hand found mine. Squeezed. His frequency hummed through our bond. Steady, unshakable. Let them whisper, he murmured. By tomorrow they will be listening. We set up camp at the edge of the clearing. Other packs kept their distance. Like brokenness was contagious. Only one wolf approached. He was middle-aged, maybe 50, with kind eyes and a bearing that suggested authority. He limped slightly, an old injury long healed. I am Beta Cassian, he said, of Iron Peak Pack, second to Alpha Thorn. Kale stepped forward protective. State your business. I came to warn you. Cassian glanced over his shoulder, lowered his voice. The council has already decided, guilty. The tribunal is theater. They will make a show of fairness, but the verdict is written. Then why are you here, I asked. He looked at me. Really looked. Because I watched Corwin Ashford abuse you for years. I knew it was happening. I did nothing. That shame lives in me. I cannot undo the past, but I can give you what advantage I have. He pulled out a folded paper, handed it to Kyle. The order of testimonies, the questions they plan to ask, and something else. He paused. Alpha Thorn is hiding wolves. Ones he calls defective. 73 of them, isolated in the outer territories. The council claims they are dead. They are not. I have proof. My breath caught. Why would he hide them? Because admitting they exist proves his ideology is a lie. If defective wolves can survive, can contribute, then his entire system of culling and exiling collapses. Valenfrost is a threat not because you are wrong, but because you are right. He met my eyes. I am sorry, Queen Riven, for what we did to you, for what we are about to do. I cannot stop it, but I can give you weapons. He placed a leather folder in my hands. Documentation, names, locations, use it well. Then he turned and limped back toward the Iron Peak camp. Kale opened the folder. Read. His expression darkened. This changes everything, he said. They began at sunrise. 12 thrones had been erected in a semicircle, one for each pack alpha. Alpha Thorn Greymark sat in the center. Larger throne, higher seat. He wore his authority like armor. 300 wolves formed a circle around the clearing. Witnesses, the jury of public opinion. In the center stood a simple platform, where the accused would speak, where we would be judged. A wolf I did not recognize stepped forward, ancient and a female. She wore robes marked with the symbol of the moon goddess. I am High Arbiter Moira, she said, her voice carried across the clearing without strain. I will oversee this tribunal. The charges have been read. The accused will have opportunity to defend. Each of the 12 alphas will vote, guilty or innocent. Majority rules. She looked at us. Step forward, accused. Kale and I walked to the platform. The others stayed back. For now, Alpha Thorn stood. The charges are clear. Valenfrost harbors defective wolves, undermines pack hierarchy, promotes ideology that weakens our species. How do you plead? I looked at him. This man who had exiled me, who had let Corwin starve me, who had built an empire on the backs of the broken. Not guilty, I said, clear, strong, and I demand the right to present evidence and witnesses. You will have your chance, Moira said. Alpha Thorn, present your case. Thorn was thorough, methodical. He presented charts showing pack strength over 2 centuries. How culling weak bloodlines had increased average wolf size by 30%, speed by 25%, combat effectiveness by 40%. These are facts, he said. Uncomfortable facts, but facts nonetheless. Weakness dilutes the gene pool. Valenfrost enables that dilution. If allowed to continue, they will undo 200 years of progress. He called witnesses. Alphas from other packs. Each testified to the same theme. Strength through selection. Survival of the fittest. The harsh but necessary truth of nature. Then he called Corwin. My former mate walked to the platform. He did not look at me, kept his eyes on Thorn. Tell them, Thorn said, about Riven Holloway, about her defects. Corwin's jaw tightened. She could not shift properly. Her wolf connection was weak. At 40, she was past prime breeding age. I rejected her on those grounds. And was that rejection justified? Silence. Corwin Ashford answered the question. Was your rejection of Riven Holloway justified? Corwin finally looked at me. I saw something in his eyes. Regret, shame, fear. No, he said quietly. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Thorn's face darkened. What did you say, no? Louder now. The rejection was not justified. I was taught that dominance equals worth, that weak wolves deserve nothing. I believed it. I acted on it, and I was wrong. He turned to face the assembly. Alpha Thorn forced me to retrieve Riven, said if I did not, he would exile my new mate, a pregnant woman. I tried. I failed. Because Riven is not weak. She never was. We just measured her by the wrong standard. Thorn shot to his feet. I dare tell the truth. Corwin's voice shook but held. And the truth is this. You are hiding wolves, 73 of them, in the outer territories. Wolves you call defective, but they are alive, surviving, contributing. I have seen them. I have documented them. He pulled out papers, threw them on the ground before Thorn's throne. Falsified death records. Wolves you claim died but actually exiled in secret. You hide them because their existence proves your ideology is a lie. The clearing erupted. Shouts, denials, chaos. Moira raised her hand. Silence fell like a blade. This is a serious accusation, Corwin Ashford. Do you have proof? I do. He gestured to the papers. Names, dates, locations. Beta Cassian helped me compile it. He is here. He will testify. All eyes turned to Cassian. The Beta stood, walked to the platform. It is true, he said. I have been complicit in this deception for 10 years. I am ashamed, but I will hide it no longer. Alpha Thorn, you have built your power on a foundation of lies. Thorn's face was purple with rage. This is treason. This is truth, Cassian said, and it is long overdue. Moira looked at the 12 alphas. We will investigate these claims. But first, the defense will present their case. Valenfrost, you may call your witnesses. I stepped forward. I called Juniper Wild. Juniper walked to the platform. Small, young, shaking. Tell them, I said gently. Tell them what you were, what you are now. She took a breath. I was exiled from Riverbend Pack at 17. My anxiety triggered involuntary shifts. They called me dangerous, unstable, a liability. She looked at the crowd. At Valenfrost, Riven taught me breath control, taught me my sensitivity was not weakness. Now I can shift at will. No involuntary changes, and my sensitivity allows me to sense injuries others miss. I am a healer. I have value, not despite my anxiety. Because of it, she silent back. I call Aldrich Stonebrook. The old man walked forward, leaning on his stick, but steady. I am 67. The Highlands Pack exiled me at 65. Said old wolves drain resources. But in Valenfrost I teach, I preserve history, I mentor the young. My age is not a burden. It is a library, and libraries are priceless. He recited from memory the entire lineage of 8 packs present, 300 years of history, without notes, without hesitation. The alphas leaned forward, listening. I called Bryn Hartwell. Bryn stepped up. Grief still lived in her eyes. But so did strength. I lost my daughter 6 months before I came to Valenfrost. My pack said it was my fault. Bad bloodline. They avoided me like death was contagious. Her voice cracked, but held. At Valenfrost, I rebuilt the greenhouse. I grow food for our entire community. I have developed techniques that increase yield by 40%. I am teaching other packs these methods. My grief taught me to nurture life. That is not weakness. That is transformation. I call Ronan Forgeheart. The warrior walked forward on his crutches, moved with more grace than many wolves with 2 legs. I lost my leg in combat. Shadowfen Pack called me a liability, but wars are not won with legs. They are won with strategy. He unrolled a map. I have analyzed Valenfrost's defenses, identified 12 critical weak points, designed reinforcements using minimal resources and maximum efficiency. I have also analyzed the defensive positions of 6 packs here. I can tell you exactly where you are vulnerable, not because I am whole, because I think. He looked at Thorn. Disabled does not mean useless. It means different, and different is valuable. I call Cassia Emberly. The small girl walked forward, shifted into a russet wolf, then back to human. I am 9. My pack said my wrong color meant wrong bloodline. But at Valenfrost, King Kale told me russet wolves have enhanced tracking. She closed her eyes, pointed. Alpha Thorn, you had venison for breakfast. Alpha Moira, you bathed in lavender soap. The wolf in the 3rd row, 4th from left, is carrying peppermint. The one behind him is sick. Early stage infection. He should see a healer. She opened her eyes. I can track sense others cannot. My wrong color is my right gift. Then a figure stepped from the crowd. Ancient, female. Blind eyes that somehow saw everything. I am Vesper Nightshade, she said. Her voice carried centuries. And I was Kyle Winterborn's mate. His queen, 900 years ago. The clearing went silent. Kale's shock rippled through our bond. He had not known she survived. Vesper walked to the platform, moved like she could see perfectly. I sealed Kale, she said, not from malice, from love. He was becoming a tyrant, obsessed with power, with conquest, with being the strongest alpha in history. He was neglecting our people, dismissing their pain. I tried to reach him, failed, so I made a choice. I gathered the council. We sealed him. She turned toward where Kale stood. It was the hardest thing I ever did, watching him trapped, conscious but paralyzed. For 900 years I lived with that choice. I wanted to free him every single day, but I could not, because he needed to learn, needed to understand what he had done wrong. Her voice softened. I watched through magical means. I saw him awaken, saw him meet Riven, saw him choose differently, choose humility, choose partnership, choose to listen. She faced the tribunal. Valenfrost under Kyle alone was strong, powerful, feared, but it was not kind. It was not just. It was not a place where wolves like these 5 could thrive. It was a place where only the strongest mattered, where I, his mate, could not reach him through his obsession with dominance. Vesper's blind eyes swept across the assembly. Valenfrost under Kyle and Riven is different. Not the strongest kingdom, but the kindest. And I testify that kindness is not weakness. Kindness requires the hardest strength of all. The strength to admit when you are wrong. The strength to change. The strength to value what you cannot control. She stepped back. Moira stood. We will now deliberate. The 12 alphas will vote. They voted in order of seniority. Alpha Thorn of Iron Peak. Your vote. Guilty. No hesitation. Alpha Ferris of Shadowfen. Guilty. Alpha Nora of Highlands. A pause. Innocent. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The votes continued. Guilty, innocent, guilty, innocent. The split was forming. 6 guilty, 5 innocent, 1 vote left. High Arbiter Moira. As eldest and neutral arbiter, you cast the deciding vote. Moira stood, looked at each of us, at Juniper, Aldrich, Bryn, Ronan, Cassia, at Kale and me. This tribunal was called to judge whether Valenfrost threatens our way of life, whether harboring defective wolves weakens our species, whether the old ways deserve to return. She walked to the center of the clearing. I have heard testimony, I have seen evidence, and I have made my decision. Silence. The entire world held its breath. Innocent. The word rang out like a bell. Valenfrost is innocent, not because they are without flaw, but because they represent what we have lost. Compassion, inclusion, the understanding that strength comes in many forms. She turned to face the 12 alphas. 200 years ago, we made a choice to value power over people, to cull what we deemed weak. And we have grown strong, but we have also grown cruel. We have forgotten that a pack is not measured by the strength of its warriors, but by how it treats its most vulnerable. She pointed to the 73 names Corwin had documented. Alpha Thorn, you stand accused of falsifying records, of hiding wolves you deemed unworthy. This tribunal will investigate. If proven true, you will face consequences. Thorn's face was stone, but I saw fear in his eyes. Valenfrost is recognized as sovereign territory, Moira declared. Any wolf, regardless of age, abilities, or bloodline, may request asylum. No pack may prevent it. She looked at me. Queen Riven, King Kao, you have proven that broken things can be made whole, that the discarded can be valuable, that there is more than one way to be strong. Go, build your kingdom, and may it serve as a reminder to all of us of what we should be. They came to us before we left. Wolves from different packs, quiet, ashamed, hopeful. 40 of them by sunset, each carrying their own story of rejection. Beta Cassian approached with news that Alpha Thorn had been suspended, that he would serve as interim alpha, that Iron Peak wanted a treaty. Corwin came last, stood at a distance, apologized from afar. I told him sorry was a start, that atonement meant action, not words. Then we turned toward home. The palace glows with life. 287 wolves call Valenfrost home. Juniper is 22 chief healer with 15 apprentices. Aldrich wrote, The Lost History of Wolfkind, now required reading in 9 packs. Bryn runs an agricultural academy feeding 6 territories. Ronan commands a regional defense coalition. Cassia leads a tracking unit, her russet coat now a badge of honor. I walk through the palace gardens where winter roses bloom year-round. Kael finds me there. I am 45 now. He looks the same, but something in his eyes has softened. 900 years of isolation, 5 years of connection. 3 more requests for asylum arrived today, he says. From Iron Peak, Cassian's reforms are working, but some wolves still face resistance. Then we welcome them, I say. Why? As always, the young wolf approaches nervous. Queen Riven. There is someone at the gates. She says she is too old to be useful. Her pack told her to die with dignity rather than be a burden. She is 72. I will greet her personally. We walk to the gates together. The woman stands in the snow. White hair, bent back, eyes that have seen too much in fear they will see nothing more. I step forward, take her weathered hands in mine. Welcome home, I say. You are not an ending. You are a beginning. She begins to cry. I hold her. This stranger who is not strange. This elder who deserves honor, not abandonment. Behind us, Valenfrost glows in the winter twilight. A kingdom built not on strength, but on the radical belief that every wolf has worth. Come inside, I say gently. Let us show you what you have been missing. We walk together through the gates, into warmth, into light, into the kingdom that says no one is too broken to be whole. And as the sun sets over Valenfrost, I realize something. I spent 40 years being told I was not enough, 20 years believing it, 3 days dying in the snow because of it. And now I stand here, Queen of the Broken, proof that the world can be wrong. The moon rises, full and silver and watching. And I know with certainty that the moon goddess did not make a mistake with me. She was just waiting for me to find the place where I belonged, where we all belong, home.